Hey guys, Mick here. Thanks for checking out the video. In this lesson we're going to start looking at body rotation. Now body rotation is a really key thing to get you smooth on the trails, and it helps with your cornering, general control, pretty much every aspect of your riding. One of the reasons it's so good is it's going to increase your range of movement on the bike. In the initial body position stuff, we've tried to get you centered on the bike, in the middle, low, make you more stable and help you with your general riding from increasing your stability, because that's going to make you safer. We've started to play a bit with range of movement forward and backward, and when we're doing things like manuals, it's very big on range of movement forward backward. Now we're going to start working on range of movement with rotation. And rotation's got a heap of benefits. The biggest one is it keeps you centered over the bike. So if we look at this from a front-on perspective, I'm sitting on my bike, cruising along, and I'm going to head into a corner. Now, there's a lot of classic descriptions about looking at the exit and things like that. Now, it's a great idea, but the downside is if I'm riding along like this and I look into the corner, it tends to turn my body in this direction. You'll notice what that's done is it's moved my center of gravity over to the side here. So as I'm leaning in, my center of gravity is really off to the side of the bike, and it means the front wheel is going to want to go that way, which is really not ideal. So the way we're going to think about this is about sticking your bum out. Now what that means is I'm going to start rotating my body to each side as I go through corners. Now we're going to play with it without corners, and this video is going to be mainly on flat and do some exercise to get started. We'll do another video later actually into some corners, but we want to get the movement happening first. Okay, sprocket, beat it. Okay, so what we're going to talk about now is how do we get this rotation. So we're riding along in our ready position and we want to turn to the left. So if what we think about is swing your bum out to the right, you'll notice that it's turned my body, so I'm now facing around the corner. But I'm actually centered over my bike. So what that means is I'm going to be centered over my bike, I'm going to have more traction, I'm still going to be leaning into the corner, but my body is going to be much more centered over my wheels. So I'm going to get much more traction and a lot more control. So how do we achieve this? Okay, so one of the exercises I've been playing with recently that seems to work fairly well for people is we'll turn around sideways. If you stand at the back of your bike and grab the back wheel between your knees, what this does effectively is gives you a bit of a center line to play with. Now you notice I'm right at the back just so that I'm sort of lightly holding it with my knees. Now if I get into my ready position here and I start to rotate, it gives me a center line that I can work with to get my bum out a bit. And I'll show you front on in a second. Okay, so that lets me turn both directions. Now what you'll notice is as I'm doing that, if I turn my outside foot and my knee, it lets me turn even more. Now this is way easier with flats than if you're clipped in, but the principle's still the same. So if we look at this from the back, you get to see, doing that same exercise, how I'm managing to rotate out to each side. Now my body is actually turning with it, so I'm not just moving my bum around, I'm actually rotating the whole body. Okay, so great exercise. That'll start to get the feel of it a little bit. The other thing you'll notice when I'm doing that, my center of gravity in my ready position is somewhere near around my belly button. Actually, if I get rid of the bike for a second, with 1 foot forward, I ride right foot forward. So with 1 foot forward, my center of gravity is somewhere around my belly button. Now if I'm rotating, my belly button's staying fairly similar to where it should be. So my center of gravity is staying reasonably centered over the bike. Doing that forward, backward. Right, one side, other side. So my center of gravity is staying fairly level, and my bum's going one way, my shoulders are going the other way, and it's keeping it all nice and centered over the bike. Cool, so let's go for a little bit of a ride and see what it looks like when we're actually on the bike. So like a lot of skills, this is often best practiced not on the trail. Just find yourself a nice flat piece of ground where you can have a play with the technique. This is a really great technique to practice somewhere like a bike path. We've got a nice grippy piece of ground and a fairly even center line. It lets you cruise along and just get nice and smooth in turning side to side and rotating backwards and forwards. The whole concept of the exercise at this stage isn't really to make a massive change in your riding on trails, it's just to get you moving better, get you more loose on the bike, get your rotation happening. Now you'll notice as I'm doing that, as soon as I rotate my body, it's making the bike turn. So it's a really great technique and it will actually initiate the turns for you. Sprocket insisted that he'd behave if I let him be in the video. So thanks heaps for watching, guys. Hopefully you're going to find this really useful. It's something we're going to focus on a lot over the next few videos because it's one of the key things we spend time teaching. We find that this is where you really start to get a heap of flow into the trail, and there's a whole pile of areas where it's going to work really well for you, and everything from cornering to obstacles to lots of different areas that we'll look at separately in different videos. So the key part is to get started, find yourself somewhere nice and flat. The bike path option works really well if you've got something near home, and have a play with it. Just get used to being a bit looser on the bike, rotating a bit more, driving the bike through corners with rotation. If you're feeling comfortable with it, by all means try it on the trail. And Sprocket and I will see you out on the trails or in the next videos. Catch you later, guys. Have fun with it.